The fluorescent lights of the grocery store buzzed overhead as Sarah Martinez clutched her worn wallet, counting crumpled bills for the third time. $12.37. That was all she had left until her next paycheck, still 5 days away. Her 8-year-old daughter Emma tugged at her sleeve, pointing to the colorful cereal boxes that seemed to mock them from the shelves. "Can we get the one with the cartoon character, Mama?" Emma's voice carried the innocent hope that only children possess, unaware that even the store brand was stretching their budget too thin. Sarah's heart shattered a little more each time she had to say no to her daughter's simple requests. 2 years ago, when Emma's father walked out, leaving nothing but empty promises and unpaid bills, Sarah had sworn she'd never let her daughter feel the weight of their struggles. Yet here she was, calculating whether they could afford milk this week or if watered-down juice would have to do again. Across town, in a glass office that overlooked the city's skyline, Marcus Chen sat behind his mahogany desk, feeling the familiar ache of emptiness that no amount of success could fill. At 38, he'd built an empire from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar corporation. His black card held no limits. His garage housed 7 luxury cars, and his penthouse apartment featured in architectural magazines. Yet as he stared at the family photo on his desk, a picture of the parents and younger sister he'd lost in a car accident 5 years ago, he wondered what any of it meant. His assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Chen, your appointment with the board is in 10 minutes. Marcus nodded absently, his thoughts drifting to a conversation he'd had with his sister just days before the accident. She'd been volunteering at a women's shelter, telling him about the incredible strength she witnessed daily in mothers fighting to provide for their children. "You know what real wealth is, Marcus?" she'd said, her eyes bright with passion. "It's not what you can buy for yourself. It's what you can give that changes someone's world." That afternoon, an unusual idea began forming in Marcus's mind. He'd heard countless pitches, seen every business proposal imaginable, but he'd never truly tested what mattered most to him: character, compassion, and the choices people make when they think nobody's watching. The next morning, Marcus stood in the parking lot of Riverside Community Center, watching as women arrived for their weekly support group meeting. He'd done his research carefully, learning about the programs that helped single mothers, domestic violence survivors, and women rebuilding their lives. The center's director, Mrs. Rodriguez, had been initially skeptical when he'd called with his unusual request, but his sincerity and the substantial donation he'd already made to the center had convinced her to trust his intentions. "Ladies," Mrs. Rodriguez announced to the group of 23 women gathered in the circle of folding chairs, "we have a visitor today. Mr. Chen would like to share something with you." Marcus stepped forward, feeling more nervous than he had during his first board presentation. These women had faced real battles, survived genuine hardships. His corporate confidence seemed hollow here. "Good morning," he began, his voice softer than usual. "I know this might seem strange, but I have a proposition for 4 volunteers. I'd like to give you my credit card, no limits. No restrictions are for 1 hour. You can buy anything you want, anywhere you want. The only rule is that you have to spend it all within that time frame." The room fell silent. A few women exchanged glances, wondering if this was some cruel joke. Sarah, who'd been attending these meetings for 6 months, felt her pulse quicken. Was this real? Could someone actually be offering such an impossible gift? "I know it sounds too good to be true," Marcus continued, pulling out his matte black American Express Centurion card. "But I'm completely serious. I'm looking for 4 volunteers who are willing to participate in what I can only call an experiment in humanity." Slowly, hesitantly, hands began to rise. Sarah's trembling fingers joined them, her mind already racing with possibilities. Emma needed new shoes so her current pair had holes that Sarah had covered with duct tape. They could finally replace their ancient refrigerator that leaked and barely kept food cold. Maybe, just maybe, they could catch up on rent and stop living in fear of eviction notices. Marcus randomly selected 4 women: Janet, a grandmother raising 3 grandchildren after her daughter's addiction spiraled out of control; Keisha, who'd escaped an abusive marriage with nothing but her 2 young sons; Linda, a widow struggling with medical bills after her husband's cancer battle; and Sarah. An hour later, they stood in the electronics section of the city's largest department store. Marcus had arranged for store managers at several locations to verify the card's authenticity and ensure smooth transactions. He followed at a distance, genuinely curious about what each woman would choose when given unlimited freedom. Janet headed straight to the children's section, filling cart after cart with clothes, shoes, and school supplies for her grandchildren. She moved with methodical efficiency, checking sizes twice, comparing prices out of habit even though cost didn't matter today. At the toy section, tears streamed down her face as she selected educational games and books, whispering to herself, they deserve to be children. Keisha found herself in the home goods department, selecting basic necessities her family had lived without for months: towels that weren't threadbare, sheets that matched, a coffee maker to replace the broken one she'd been mourning for 6 months. Her choices were practical, born from knowing exactly what poverty felt like. Linda surprised everyone by heading to the jewelry counter, but not for herself. She purchased a beautiful pearl necklace and matching earrings, explaining to the confused sales associate that they were for her daughter's upcoming wedding. I sold mine to pay for her father's treatments, she said quietly. I wanted her to have something beautiful for her special day, something from her mother. But it was Sarah who left Marcus truly speechless. While the other women shopped for their immediate families, Sarah walked purposefully toward the customer service desk. I'd like to buy grocery gift cards, she announced. As many as this card will allow in. As she checked her phone, 37 minutes. The manager looked confused. Mom, you could buy anything in the store. Are you sure you just want gift cards? Sarah nodded firmly. $500 each, please. As many as possible. For the next half hour, Sarah systematically purchased $47,000 worth of grocery gift cards. When Marcus approached her, genuinely puzzled by her choice, she looked up at him with tears in her eyes but a steady voice. Mr. Chen, you don't know what it's like to choose between your child's medication and groceries, or to water down the milk so it lasts longer. You don't know what it feels like to avoid your neighbor's eyes because you couldn't pay back the $20 you borrowed for diapers. She held up the stack of gift cards. But I do. And so do dozens of other mothers in my neighborhood, at Emma's school, at the community center. She paused, composing herself. I could have bought us a car, or furniture, or clothes. But those things wouldn't change the fact that tomorrow, Mrs. Patterson next door will still be feeding her 4 kids cereal for dinner because that's all she can afford. Or that Maria from Emma's class will still be wearing the same 3 shirts to school because her mom works 2 jobs and still can't make ends meet. Sarah's voice grew stronger. These gift cards represent help for 94 families. 94 mothers who will be able to feed their children protein this week, who won't have to choose between milk and bread, who might sleep a little better knowing their babies aren't going to bed hungry. Marcus stood frozen, watching this woman who had been given the opportunity to transform her own life, instead choosing to plant seeds of change in her entire community. In that moment, he understood what his sister had been trying to tell him years ago. Real wealth wasn't measured in what you could accumulate, it was measured in what you were willing to give away. The next week, Sarah received a call that would change everything. Marcus had been so moved by her choice that he'd spent days researching her background, learning about her struggles as a single mother, her work ethic, and her dream of finishing her abandoned nursing degree. The call was an offer, a full-time position as Director of Community Outreach for his company's new charitable foundation, complete with benefits, a salary that would finally provide security for her and Emma, and full tuition coverage for her to complete her nursing degree. But perhaps more importantly, Sarah had given Marcus something invaluable in return, a reminder of what true generosity looked like. Inspired by her example, he restructured his entire approach to philanthropy, moving away from impersonal donations to hands-on community involvement. 6 months later, at the grand opening of the Marcus and Elena Chen Community Support Center named after his late sister, Marcus watched Sarah distribute gift cards to families in need. Emma, now wearing new shoes and carrying a backpack full of supplies, helped her mother organize the donations. As Sarah caught his eye across the crowded room, she smiled at the first truly carefree smile he'd seen from her. In that moment, Marcus realized that his black card hadn't just tested the character of 4 women. It had revealed his own capacity for meaningful connection and reminded him that sometimes, the most profound gifts come not from what we can afford to buy, but from what we choose to give away. The experiment had ended, but the transformation it sparked in both their lives was just beginning.